Hi, and welcome to Third Floor Views, a production of Chesapeake Family Life, where we talk about health, education, and living with kids. I'm your host, Laura Boycourt. Today, we'll be talking about something Annapolitans and Marylanders in general have been eagerly awaiting, a new soccer team in the state capital, the Annapolis Blues. I'm so excited to welcome Fred Matthes, the team's general manager. Thank you so much, Fred, for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Laura. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So, if we could start with a little bit of background and context for listeners and viewers, could you explain both the Annapolis Soccer Group and the National Premier Soccer League? Maybe we'll refer to that as the NPSL, and where the Annapolis Blues fit within both of those.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Annapolis is a brand new team, an expansion team for this year. We've played a preseason game and one regular season game so far. The NPSL, the National Premier Soccer League that you mentioned, is a fourth division amateur league in the U.S. soccer pyramid, as they call it. For people that are not as familiar with things, they're probably familiar with DC United in this market. That's the top of the pyramid. That's Major League Soccer. That's fully professional, top level Division I in this country. Division II below it is the USL Championship, which is bigger teams, some down in North Carolina, Atlanta area, Florida, all over the country too, as well. About 30 teams in that level, and that's fully professional too. Division III is a little bit below that, smaller, more regional teams, but also full professional. The NPSL is a fourth division team, which is fully amateur. So what that means is that a lot of our players come out of the collegiate ranks. They come from amateur clubs, teams in the area, and that they can still play in this league. It's a spring and summer type league. It's a much shorter time frame than those other leagues are. They go full year, almost full year. But the NPSL is a short time league, and those players can go back to their colleges, still retain their amateur status, and go right back into playing at the collegiate level, and then hopefully to be seen by some of those other leagues, so that eventually in their careers they get a chance to move up into those different areas. NPSL is nationwide. There's over 100 teams in it. We're in what is termed as the Mid-Atlantic Division. We play as far south as Greenville, North Carolina, and then ourselves and the Frederick FC are two of the northern teams up in Maryland. There's also 4 teams in Northern Virginia, and there's another team in Richmond and one in Virginia Beach. So there's 8 in our division or our conference of the Mid-Atlantic. Should we be fortunate to get into the playoffs and win that conference, then we can play against the other conferences and ultimately some at the end of July be playing for a national championship. But that's not on our radar quite yet. We want to get the season up and going and make sure we're successful on and off the pitch, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Fantastic. So tell me a little bit about the team and where the idea for a team, specifically in Annapolis, where did that originate? If you could sort of walk us through the evolution, who was involved, sort of how did that all play out?
Sure. Well, one of our owners, his name's Michael Hitchcock, and Hitch and I had a background in that we both started together back in the early days of Major League Soccer was DC United. He was there for a few of the early years while I was there, and then I was there for 18 years. So we've always stayed in touch and kept things well. Hitch has also gone into his own consulting company, much like I have too, where he has been working with lots of different clubs around the country. He's got clubs out in California. He's got a handful in Texas. He's got 2 in North Carolina now. He saw Annapolis as a tremendous opportunity. He saw as an area that was just outside of 2 of the major metropolitan areas, but that had a great love for soccer, a good following, and potentially could be a great spot for another NPSL team. So he started checking around. He has a couple of friends in the MLS and that played in MLS. Kyle Beckerman also played for the U.S. men's national team. Alex Yee, who played in Major League Soccer that he knew, shot the idea around with them. They're both from the Annapolis area. They said, that's fantastic. We'd love to put back into this. We'd love to get involved. So Hitch made a trip out to Annapolis. He started checking around, started meeting with a lot of local potential investors and sponsors and partners, and saw one thing after the next, that this is a great community. This is a great place to put a soccer team. And as we keep saying all the way along, it's not DC, it's not Baltimore. We'll certainly have fans from those areas come to our games and that, but Annapolis has its own unique identity. And it's such a great, it's got such great history, rich traditions in that, and it follows the game of soccer very, very closely. And that's where the idea sort of sparked from, and then it just took off from there. I got involved a little bit later, late in the fall of 2022, when Hitch called me up and told me about the idea, and I'd been following what was going, and he said, I really need a general manager, somebody that's kind of done this before. And in
Yeah.
my career, I've done this with a few different teams to help start up new teams, new clubs. And so, I was sort of talked into it, but all it took was one trip over there to Annapolis. I live in Northern Virginia, just to say, hey, he's right. This is perfect. We need to make this thing go. And so far, so good.
And we're so glad that it worked out the way that it has. And so sort of piggybacking onto the point you made about Annapolis being its own, obviously, community, but it's sort of its own market, having its own identity. Who are some of the team's local and regional partners and sponsors? As I was looking through some of the names you have on your website, I'm sure some listeners and viewers will recognize Rise Up Coffee, Watermark, Luminous Health, Heroes Pub, Bread and Butter Kitchen. I mean, the list goes on. Why is it important to have local sponsors like those?
Well, it's such a key, and you mentioned some of the other ones too. Forward Brewing was one of the first ones that stepped up there on the front of our jersey too. As you mentioned, Rise Up Coffee, Watermark, Picante. All of these groups started to come to us initially when Hitch was putting the idea out there around. And what we found out very quickly is that Annapolis is such a tight-knit community that those guys and those people that we worked with in those groups knew everybody else and they knew them. So not only are we helping them promote their brands and get their word out there, they're helping to promote us too. And everybody that we seem to talk to, whether it's Brandon Bartlett there at Rise Up or Jake Iverson at Watermark or Cam Bowder and at Forward, they're like, oh, you should talk to this person, this person, this person. And then those people start calling us saying, hey, our buddies that are doing business and doing sponsorship with you, we want to get involved too. So incredibly important that way from the local sponsorship standpoint is that you've got a community and a neighborhood or a network there that works together, lives together, plays together. They all want to get everybody else involved and get excited about it. So it just led right into our growth. We've got over 40 different sponsors already. And for a first year expansion team, that's just unheard of, particularly at this level. And every single one of them is super, super supportive of us, whether they're doing business with us directly, whether they're seeing the benefits of us doing promotions in their places of business and having fans show up and, shop in their stores or in their areas and that, it's just been a nice general response all over the place from every sponsor that we've reached out to, and we've kept it all local.
Fantastic. And that is quite the roster of sponsors and partners. It's wonderful. And sort of related to that question, the name Annapolis Blues, could you kind of get into that? What does blues represent? I know the answer to this, but I want to hear it from you. And on that, building off that, why does Annapolis need and deserve to have the blues? Like we talked about it a little bit at the top of the interview, but what is it specifically about this area, I suppose? So the name, and then what it does for the region and Annapolis.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, obviously, this is our badge, as you can see it there in my
Yep.
shirt. The blues, the blue crab. I mean,
Yep.
it speaks for itself all through the entire area of the seafood industry. Not only the food and eating the crabs, but protect the crabs and the Chesapeake Bay and all that part of it. The entire nautical theme just made sense. And it's got a little soccer ball in his claws there too, like he's holding on to soccer in the region and that. So that was and that was selected by our fans. It was something we put a few different names out there that had nautical followings, things like that. The blues just resonated. And around soccer worldwide, a lot of teams, they may have a different team name, but they refer to the color they wear, which is usually, if it's blues in that case, they refer to themselves as the blues. So that fit in very well with the entire region, the entire area. The Annapolis part, you might not think about it much because it's Annapolis's team, as we say. There's never been a soccer team named Annapolis. There's never been really any other team named Annapolis. Every team, whether it's been amateur, professional, and soccer, lacrosse, whatever it's been in the market, has always named itself either Chesapeake or Bay or Eastern Maryland or just Maryland or something like that. Nobody has put the name Annapolis on a team. Well, instantly that just stamps the fact that this is Annapolis's soccer team. So the name evolved in two ways, and that the crab obviously is a mascot and is something emblematic of the area, but also the Annapolis part was very important to us too, to make sure that was in the name. And that told the story that, look, this is our club. This is our soccer team that's here. So that was kind of the evolution behind it. But again, the biggest part was getting the fans involved. This could have been the Annapolis Kraken. It could have been the Annapolis Seawolves. It could have been, I forget what the other one was that we had, but Annapolis Blues was far and away the choice of the fans too. It just really fits.
It does. It sounds perfect, and it represents so many great things about our spot on the Chesapeake Bay and all the reasons that you mentioned. So let's get down to the details, the coaching staff and the roster. What was the process like, sort of building those out? And can you give us a small sampling of maybe their backgrounds, what they bring to the table individually and then as a whole?
Sure. Yeah. And as we said, I mean, this region is so strong in soccer, all the way down to the youth level through the collegiate ranks, all the amateur clubs in the area, and that too. Just such a great following to it. So when we started looking, we had a lot of help, particularly right there at the Naval Academy. Tim O'Donoghue, the head coach there, started to point out people we should interview as a coaching candidate for this club, as well as some of the players that he had been recruiting or that had come through his camps and things like that he knew about too. So we started building a club in that model that, look, let's find local regional players. So many great youth soccer clubs in the area, from Maryland United, Baltimore Celtic, Baltimore Armor, Pipeline Soccer Club, Bethesda Soccer Club. So many great clubs around the area that have elite players already that are being recruited by Major League Soccer and other clubs, and even overseas in Europe and that there are clubs that look at these clubs to build their players from. So started looking around there, and Maryland United is one that's very close to Annapolis, and Colin Harriet was one of the names that popped out as our head coach candidate. We interviewed a few other great candidates from the area, but Colin just really came to it with the approach of taking this opportunity to build not only a great team around here and around Annapolis, but also for him and his coaching staff to build what they felt would be a very strong amateur club in this market, and potentially in his career and their careers be the chance to move up to another level too, as well in the future. So he really went about it. As I said, all those local soccer clubs there. He's gone into the collegiate ranks. We've got players from the University of Maryland, from Georgetown, Loyola, even further south down in High Point, North Carolina. But they're guys who grew up in the Annapolis area, even though they go to school away in other areas, they come back for the summertime. They're playing for our club. Catholic University. I'm trying to think of some of the others that are there, really all over the map in the area, and that from the collegiate ranks. So we're getting a real strong level of talent that's there. They've already bonded together incredibly well. Real disciplined team. Colin is from Scotland originally, so he comes with that real Scottish sort of fight and grit behind him. But he's not a tough guy. He's a nice guy, and he's kind of down to earth. But when it comes to his soccer, he's very serious. It's football, very, very serious, and it's hard to get Colin to smile. In any interview we do with that, he's very much matter of fact. So we always try and get a little smile out of Colin somewhere along the way. But he's done a tremendous job in putting this club together. And so far, our first preseason game, we took on an MLS developmental squad, Philadelphia Union team, and beat them 3-0 at the stadium with about 4,000 people there. So got the atmosphere going, got the team going the right way and all that. Took a road trip for their first game down in North Carolina, came back with a 0-0 tie, picked up a point on the road, which is kind of considered almost like a win away from home, a tie away from home. So we stay on the road for 2 more weeks and then come back June 3rd for our home opener. And that'll be a chance for the fans to see us in full bore there. And hopefully we're doing well at that point, and they can get behind the team on the field just as much as they're going to have a lot of fun off the field too.
Absolutely. And speaking of heading home, you guys play at Navy Marine Corps Stadium, and it's throughout July. Through July? Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. And the only reason we play a lot in May is, as you know, the Naval Academy is really booked up in May, not only their own graduations for the midshipmen and that, but there's also the NC2A lacrosse tournament is there this May. Navy men's and women's lacrosse were playing in there. There are Navy football camps in May. So we really did not have the opportunity to play a lot of home games in May, just that preseason game. So we pack a lot of our schedule then into June and July. Our hopes are that we make it up into the playoffs. So we'll be playing into middle and late July, and then potentially even the national championship after that. Hopefully hosting as many of those as possible right there at the stadium.
Fantastic. And what are your hopes for the club's future? If you're looking down the road, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, what do you envision? What would be ideal?
Yeah, well, I think to kind of backtrack a little, we're already in an ideal situation. We've built an incredible base. This club is now considered one of the largest NPSL clubs in the country, just based on our season ticket numbers and our first game in attendance. And we look to have even bigger numbers in attendance going forward. So we've established that part, that we're a huge part of the community and a huge part of NPSL. we don't stop at that. Now we want to continue to grow and get that even bigger so that people all around the country look at Annapolis as one of the premier teams in the area. We hope, as I mentioned, to make the playoffs and then get potentially up into a role where we can win the division, then we can play in something known as the US Open Cup next year. And that gives us even more of a chance to put Annapolis on the map, and that teams that play in the US Open Cup will typically play against higher level competition in the region. So if things all work out right, we could be playing DC United at Navy Memorial Stadium, not just as a practice or as a friendly. We could play them in something that would mean a potential moving up in the US Open Cup. That would be an ideal scenario 2, 3, 4 years down the road. Adding a women's team to the mix, adding a club that emulates the women's side of the amateur level game or professional level game. There are a few new leagues emerging. We're not going to rival the Washington Spirit in the NWSL, but certainly we can bring in a lower division women's club that is built in the same way that this team was, taking advantage of the talent in the local soccer clubs, the elite talent, and then the universities and the women's game around this area, and building a women's club. It won't happen overnight. It might take a season or two to get to that point, but definitely on the radar to do something along those lines too. And then just continue to build this up. And we love playing at Navy Memorial Stadium, but if this is a club that continually can raise large crowds or bring large crowds in, and that there might be the opportunity to build our own soccer stadium in the area. A lot of clubs at this level have moved up into the higher ranks and done that. Again, that's way down the road, but we want to crawl before we walk and walk before we run. And when we do start running, we want to make sure we don't trip up. We want to keep on the right path. And so far, so good this season. So things are looking great.
You bet. The foundation is there, and what a foundation it is. For listeners or viewers who want to learn more about the team or maybe get some tickets, where should they go?
The best way is obviously to our website. It's www.annapolisblues.com. That takes you into all those different areas to look at ticket purchases. Season tickets are still on sale. Merchandise, we've been selling a ton of merchandise. You've probably seen it around town. The Annapolis Blues jersey is very popular. Everybody wearing it. So the website has that. Certainly all our social media has had great following on Twitter at Annapolis Blues, Instagram at Annapolis Blues, Facebook, and that we're there. I don't think we're on TikTok yet, but we're making inroads everywhere we can. And we've got a great following on all of that. And we also have a supporters club, the Bay Boys, that are going to be behind us at the stadium. They've started their own social media presence. They'll be part of the whole atmosphere there too. So all of those areas, reach out to us, ask a friend, have they heard about Annapolis Blues? And hopefully most people have now in town, and they'll find out as much as they need to from their friends, their neighbors, their soccer friends, soccer teammates, and that too as well.
You guys are the talk of the town. Why should folks, whether they're longtime residents or visitors in Annapolis, that happen to be in town on game day, why should they head over to the stadium to catch a game?
I think the overall atmosphere is going to be fun. And this last preseason we just had, I tell you the number of people that just thanked me and thanked us as a team for bringing soccer back to Annapolis. They'd been wanting something like this, they've been wanting it around there. The atmosphere was just electric the other day. So many kids and families that were there, from the halftime kids that played out on the field to the walkouts, the escorts or mascots, we call them, that walk out with the team. They were having a blast. We even did an autograph alley, sort of an impromptu at the end of the game, where the kids were all lined up along the end of the fence there, and the players just went out one by one signing autographs, and for about half an hour, 45 minutes after the game was over with. I think the guys were having as much fun signing autographs as the kids were getting them. That's a big part of it. The tailgate atmosphere there, everybody knows that goes to Navy football games, what a fantastic scene that is there. We hope to emulate that in some small form out there in the parking area. Parking lots will open 3 hours before the gates open to the game, so people are encouraged to come out early and just have a blast with their friends and kick around out there and talk soccer and have fun, and then come into the stadium and watch some great soccer on the field and have fun as well with all the activities that are going on. So far it's been an electric atmosphere. We're very fortunate. We had great weather the other night when we played our first preseason. We're hoping for that. Keep our fingers crossed in the summertime that all the nights are pretty. Most of our game times are 7 p.m. on the Saturday nights, 5 p.m. in the afternoon on Sundays. We have a couple of Sunday games there. So it should be convenient. It's close by. Parking is right there, and the tailgate area is going to be great. So we hope to see everybody out there this season having a great time.
You bet. I can't wait to see you guys there and get my tickets. It's a dream realized and a dream come true for so many people in Annapolis and the general community. So thank you so much to Fred Matthes for taking the time to talk with us about Annapolis's newest soccer team, the Blues. And here's wishing them a wonderful season. And thank you to all of our viewers and listeners as well. Make sure you visit ChesapeakeFamily.com for up-to-date local information on home, health, and living for today's Maryland parent. This episode will be archived on ChesapeakeFamily.com in video and podcast format. I'm Laura Boycourt with Chesapeake Family Life and Third Floor Views. Thanks so much.